All right, let's just jump straight into what is frankly a massive historical reversal today. I want you to picture the year. We're talking about, around 1020 CE. Now, if I ask you the biggest question in visual science, who invented the first optical camera?
Right.
Who figured out that core principle that lets us focus and capture light?
Well, if you're going by the standard history you probably learned in school, you're almost certainly thinking of a European name.
Exactly.
Maybe Leonardo da Vinci or, someone from much later, like the 17th or 18th century.
And that answer would be off by, what, 600 years? And by half a continent geographically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because our deep dive today is all about the mind of Abu Ali al-Hassan Ibn al-Haytham, or, as he was known in Europe, al-Haytham.
A Muslim scholar living and working in 11th century Cairo.
And we really have to set the scene here. I mean, 11th century Cairo, it's the center of the world.
It really is. Under the Fatimid caliphs, this city wasn't just some economic hub. It was an intellectual fortress. Their libraries, they were legendary. Overflowing with manuscripts from Greece, Rome, Persia, India, everything they could get their hands on.
But Ibn al-Haytham himself, he wasn't some rich court figure.
Not at all. He was a dedicated scientist. He often worked in relative poverty, just meticulously focused on his research, completely absorbed by it.
And his mission, I guess you'd call it. It was so simple to state, but the implications were just huge.
He wanted to solve the puzzle of how we see. That's it. For centuries, nobody had actually proven how sight works.
And that's the core of our deep dive. You're going to unpack how his obsessive quest for proof led him to invent the concept that underlies literally all modern cameras.
From the Hubble telescope down to the phone in your pocket.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with what the world believed before him. What were these ancient ideas he was up against?
Well, you have to remember, the theories he inherited were all based on, let's say, philosophical confidence, not evidence. For hundreds of years, the ideas came straight from the ancient Greek giants, and, they were treated like gospel.
So you had two main theories. Theory one, the emission theory.
Championed by thinkers like Euclid and Ptolemy. And the idea was that the eye itself shoots out these invisible rays.
Like tiny little lanterns?
Exactly, like laser beams that would go out and sort of scan an object to perceive it. The eye was the active agent.
Okay, and theory two?
A bit different, but not much better. Aristotle's idea was that objects themselves emit a kind of a form or a visual fire that somehow travels into the eyeball.
But with no real mechanism for how that works.
None.
So wait, they thought the eye was like a radar gun. Or a headlamp, not a sensor.
Pretty much, which is just, it's so counterintuitive.
Yeah, just try to see in a pitch black room.
Exactly. If your eyes are shooting beams, why can't you see in the dark? Ibn al-Haytham saw that enormous logical gap. The theories sounded neat, I guess, but they just fell apart under any real scrutiny.
So his truly revolutionary act wasn't just having a new idea. It was that he demanded proof.
Precisely. He insisted on controlled physical testing, meticulous observation. And this was a direct challenge to giants like Aristotle and Galen, whose work was considered, untouchable.
But fearless.
He was. Because for him, empirical truth, what he could actually measure and see, was more important than historical authority. He wasn't really arguing with Aristotle. He was testing the world.
And that quest for proof is what led him to build his famous device.
It did. He needed a way to isolate light, to watch what it does on its own. And that's where he constructs the camera Obscura.
Which is just Latin for dark chamber.
A dark chamber. It's so beautifully simple. Imagine a totally sealed, dark room, a tent, a box, whatever.
Right.
And in one wall, you make one single tiny little hole, the aperture.
And outside, you have a bright scene, like a Cairo street.
Exactly. And the light from every single point in that scene travels through that tiny pinhole and projects an image onto the opposite wall.
And what did that image look like? That's the key, right?
It was startling. It was perfectly clear, but it was upside down.
Inverted.
Completely inverted. And he published this in his masterpiece, the Kitab al-Manazir, the Book of Optics.
Why is that inversion the absolute smoking gun, the thing that just destroys the old theories?
Because it proves, beyond any doubt, that light travels in straight lines. Think about it. A ray of light from the top of an object, say, the top of a candle, flame travels in a dead straight line through the pinhole and lands on the bottom of the back wall.
And a ray from the bottom of the flame lands on the top.
The rays cross at the aperture. That's what forces the image to flip. It has to.
So if your eye was shooting rays outward, the image wouldn't flip. The physics just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work. This proved, fundamentally, that vision happens when light enters the eye. The eye isn't a lamp, it's a receiver, a sensor.
He disproved it all with one simple, repeatable demonstration.
He did. He turned vision from a subjective idea into an objective physical process.
It's just astounding that this principle from a millennium ago is the exact same physics in our most advanced technology today.
It is. It's the foundation of photography, of cinema. Renaissance artists like Vermeer later used the camera Obscura to get that incredible perspective in their paintings.
And it's in every single smartphone in the world right now.
He even found a practical use for it right away. He used these dark rooms to safely study solar eclipses.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, instead of looking at the sun, he let the image of the sun project onto the wall. He could watch the eclipse happen without going blind. It was the perfect little laboratory.
Okay, but hang on. An image on a flat wall is one thing. How did he make the huge leap from that to how the tiny, curved, wet human eye works?
And that's where his genius for method comes in. He didn't just stop at the observation.
Right.
He theorized that the eye itself must act like a tiny camera obscura. The pupil is the aperture. And the inversion that happens in the darkroom must also happen on the retina at the back of the eye.
So he wasn't afraid of the implication that we're all seeing a upside-down world.
Not at all. He just accepted it as a physical fact and then reasoned that the brain must be the thing that corrects the image. His true innovation wasn't just the discovery, it was the how, the structure of his investigation.
You mean the scientific method?
Absolutely. The birth of it, really. He set the gold standard. He ran controlled experiments. He didn't just look at the box once. He changed the variables.
Like what? What would he change?
The size of the hole, for instance. He systematically documented what happened. If the aperture was too big, the image got blurry.
Overlap.
Exactly. Too tiny. And the image was sharp but dim. He was establishing these quantitative relationships between light, distance, and clarity. It's that rigor hypothesis, testing, measurement, verification that was just so far ahead of its time.
He basically turned optics from a branch of philosophy into a hard science.
He did. And we should also mention his motivation for all this. For him, science wasn't separate from his faith, not at all.
It was a companion to it.
Yes. The Quran talks a lot about light. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. So for Ibn al-Haytham, studying light was a spiritual act. It was a way of understanding divine order through measurement.
Which explains the humility you read about in his life. He wasn't after fame or status. He was just after the truth.
Yeah. And that brings us to this really astonishing historical contrast.
Right. Let's put this in context. It's the 11th century. While he's in Cairo laying the foundations of modern optics, what's happening in Christian Europe?
It's a picture of, well, profound scientific inversion. You think about cities like London or Paris then. They were dark, unpaved, notoriously filthy.
No sanitation, no street lighting.
Nothing like that.
Yeah.
Medical knowledge was based on superstition and charms. Books were so rare and precious, they were literally chained to walls in monasteries.
It just sounds like a completely different universe from the Islamic centers.
It was. Cities like Cordoba, Baghdad, Cairo, they glittered with knowledge and infrastructure. Cordoba had streetlights, waste removal, public baths.
And Cairo had these incredible hospitals, the Bimaristans.
Which treated the poor for free, staffed by specialist doctors. They had observatories, massive libraries. The knowledge gap wasn't just theoretical, you could see it in the streets.
But somehow, this knowledge, Ibn al-Haytham's work, it didn't stay locked in Cairo. How did it get to Europe?
The crucial step was translation. In the 12th century, his book of optics was translated into Latin. And once that happened, it started circulating among the few scholars in Europe who were working on this stuff. And for the next 500 years, it was the textbook on vision. It was mandatory reading.
He became the foundation.
The influence is just undeniable. Johannes Kepler, who gets a lot of credit for solving the riddle of the retina, he explicitly said, Alhazen opened the way.
He said that.
He did. And other figures, like Roger Bacon, they didn't just build on his work. They somewhat just copied it directly. As one historian, David Lindbergh, put it, no Latin author of the Middle Ages was uninfluenced by Alhazen's optics.
Okay, so this is the big question then. If he was so foundational, if every major European scientist for 5 centuries stood on his shoulders, why is his name so often skipped in our history classes?
Right. We all know Galileo. We all know Newton.
Why not Ibn al-Haytham?
And this is where we have to talk about historical narratives and the legacy of colonial bias. The source material we're looking at argues that the silence is, to some degree, deliberate.
Yes.
Because highlighting Muslim genius kind of disrupts a very convenient European narrative.
The one where Europe pulls itself out of the Dark Ages all on its own.
Exactly. Without any significant intellectual debt to the Islamic world. The argument is that when his work was translated, the translators often downplayed or even removed the references to the original Muslim source. They sort of whitewashed the discovery.
A kind of historical erasure.
That's the argument. And it makes it easier for later European scholars to claim the scientific method or the principles of optics as uniquely Western inventions. It helps cement a narrative of European superiority.
Which isn't just an academic debate. It matters today because it shapes how we think about where innovation comes from. This story leaves us with, I think, 3 really crucial lessons.
The first is just how compatible Islam and science can be. For him, they weren't in conflict. Curiosity and faith worked together. They fueled each other.
And the second is the need to reclaim these forgotten voices, to tell the full story. If the standard narratives are going to leave people like him out, then we have a responsibility to put them back in.
And the third lesson, I think, is a reminder that scientific leadership isn't permanent. It's not an inheritance. The Muslim world led the way because of the values he embodied: humility, rigor, and a relentless pursuit of truth.
It is so poetic when you think about it. This man living simply in Cairo, solving an ancient riddle just by watching light in a dark room. And every single time we snap a photo on our phone, we're using the physics he figured out 1,000 years ago.
And that leads to the final thought this deep dive provokes. I mean, Ibn al-Haytham worked with just candles and ink, and he completely changed the world's scientific understanding.
Yeah.
So if that civilization once led the world, it raises a really important challenge for you today. With all of our modern technology, our resources, our huge universities in those same regions, what's the excuse for the lack of that same kind of global scientific leadership now?
That's a powerful question.
His story shouldn't just be a source of pride in the past. It should be a call for urgent modern action to reclaim that mantle of inquiry and rigor.
A profound and necessary challenge. So, the next time you take a photo, maybe just take a moment to think about the forgotten voice of Ibn al-Haytham, the man who first mastered the light. Acknowledge that the lamp of his knowledge is, well, it's still burning today.